Hello, everyone. My name is Cassy Adams, and I'm really excited to be here today with Lance Christian. Um, I am the Senior Director of Mission and Operations, and soon will be stepping in as the new Executive Director for ALS Northwest. And Lance Christian is our longtime stalwart Executive Director who's been with the organization for 22 years.
Thank you for not saying old. Thank you.
Stalwart's a good word for that.
Yeah.
And I'm just really excited to be able to be live today just to talk a little bit with Lance about his 22 years with the organization, how far the organization's come, and just really, Lance, get to know a little bit more about your insights and your time being with ALS Northwest.
Great. Thanks, Cassy.
Yeah, so let's kick it off by just, we know your retirement is coming up at the end of this month. And I'm just curious, how does it feel as you're sort of reflecting back on 22 years with this organization and what this moment really means for you?
Oh, thanks, Cassy. Since I announced my retirement, I've been receiving a lot of amazing messages of love and support and appreciation. And it's been so heartwarming and really it's been humbling. Partly because of, the real heroes in our journey are the people living with ALS and their families. You know, um, you know, I'm often asked, like, gosh, that's a long time, 20 plus years, 22 years. And people ask me, like, what got you involved? Did you have a family member living with ALS? And I didn't. But of course, over 22 years, I've gotten so intimately close to hundreds, thousands of families living with ALS. And the real human connection is the most important thing, the ability that we've had as an organization, and for me personally, to know and have an impact on the lives of people affected by this terrible disease, and so I don't have that mission connection in my family, but it lives in my heart. And so, as I often am telling everyone right now, is like, while I may be retiring and I'm doing this for my own family and for my own good and to pursue some other life goals and all those fun things that retirement may bring, I'm really just taking my leader hat off and switching it on to being a supporter like everyone else who cares and will continue to care about this mission.
Yeah, well, it's incredibly inspiring to me, and I think to many others. That, you put in 22 years of your life to
Yeah.
this mission, and it's a very challenging disease, as we all know. I know a little bit about this story, but for those who might not, could you kind of take us back to the beginning?
Yeah.
What was it like back then, and what drew you
Yeah.
to work?
Absolutely. I was employee number two for our organization. Our amazing founder, Cindy Burdell, her brother lived on ventilator with ALS for many years. And with a promise to him to form an organization to make a difference for families living with ALS, the Burdell Foundation was formed, which then evolved to the ALS Association and ALS Northwest. But back in those days in 2002 and prior to that, it was pretty slim. There wasn't a lot of resources at all in our community. There was a support group at OHSU and a support group in Medford. That was it.
Yeah.
And other beyond that, it was just lots of local people trying to connect with one another to share what they'd learned in their journey with the disease. There wasn't ALS clinics. There were no support programs. Really, it was people were diagnosed and they were on their own. And unless they bonded together to get mutual support. So there was a lot of need. And, in those early days, it was just very much about running constantly to connect with the next person who heard those words, you have ALS, and their family members, to figure out what we could do to support them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing, just knowing where things started and knowing how far we've come.
Yeah.
You touched on a few of those pieces, but and it's probably hard to look back and really define this from 22 years past. But
Yeah.
what are some of the big achievements that stand out in your mind?
Yeah, I'm so proud of the work we've all done together, and I get some kudos for it, but it's really everyone pulling together. Myself, all of our staff over the many years, our donors over many years, our community partners, the healthcare providers, all the people who made a difference. Really, what we've been able to accomplish is build a community that and be able to channel the energy of the people who care about this mission to create programs that hopefully create as much wraparound support for families as possible. You know, some of the big accomplishments in those early days were creation of our support group networks across the state, adding care services coordinators across the region in the state so that people have a face and a supportive resource they can go to. Initially, very much creating a high focus on our assistive technology and augmented and alternative communication program. And then with our community partners and our supporters, really partnering to help be in the grassroots at the beginning to spark the creation of every ALS clinic in our community, from Providence to Kaiser to the VA, OHSU, St. Charles and Bend, to improve the quality of care for people living with ALS, and then also the wraparound supports that go out to people in their community. All these things take energy, effort, and it's not one person or one organization, but it's all of us together.
Yeah. Well, and I know that's something that you've said often throughout the years, Lance, is it really does take a village. It takes all of us working together in community and partnership. So,
yeah.
What do you feel like has been ALS Northwest's greatest impact on the ALS community? I mean, you touched on the clinics and the programs and things like that, but like, what is one really monumental thing that you feel like ALS Northwest has?
I think public policy advocacy has been very crucial as part of what we do. And lots of time in Washington, D.C. and here in the state, engaging with policymakers to make a difference. I'm so happy that, we know veterans develop ALS at twice the rate of the general population, and the VA has truly embraced that population with amazing wraparound supports for healthcare and for financial assistance. That didn't happen from nowhere. It was people from this community connecting and going to Washington, D.C. and here to our congressional offices that got legislation passed that acknowledged that connection and develop those supports for people. And it was me and Cindy and lots of other people, Aubrey going to Washington, D.C., and people with ALS, meeting with Gordon Smith, meeting with Ron Wyden, and all the people who made those things happen. So public policy was a huge thing, I think a big accomplishment. But on a human level, I think the most important thing is that to the extent that people want support, my hope has always been that there's a supportive resource available to everyone, regardless of where they're at, to be able to offer support, resources, and connection to help navigate this disease. Because as we know, it's also overwhelming and when you first hear those words about that you have ALS. And I think the most important thing that we really have done is can have that connection with people, that they're part of a community. There's people who care, who are going to make a difference and help provide guidance.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I know there are probably hundreds of people and moments that really stand out to you. We'd be here for days and days for you to share all of those moments. But are there any particular moments or people who are kind of sticking out in your brain as you're thinking this that you'd want to share?
Yeah. Really, absolutely. So many people and moments. And if I don't mention your name or someone's name of your loved one who had ALS, please know that it's not an oversight. It's just too many people, and everyone has had an impact on my heart. As you lose people, your heart fills up with their memories, and you carry them forward to inspire the work that we all do together. And I think about right now, someone who inspires me is Megan Kahn, a young woman who's living with ALS. And if people don't know who she is, visit the ALS Northwest YouTube page and check out her profile video. She will inspire you the way she inspires me to keep working to move forward because of her positive attitude and engagement with life for her and her family. But then I go back way back in time, and there's so many people. Steve White, who was my mentor, a person living with ALS, who was on the Burdell Foundation board and the ALS Association board, taught me so much. He truly was my initial spark, and continues to this day. Steve Saul, Cynthia Green, Bryce Bagman, Teresa Willett, Harper Bates, Arnie Gray, Sam Beekman, Colton Allen, people living with ALS still today, like Brian Epp, and especially somebody like Fred Noble. There's so many people who, either through their wisdom, mentoring me, or they're being a champion supporter or a spark, and sometimes a pain in the rear end to keep us moving forward. All those people, really, each generation of families living with ALS have moved this mission forward and have been partners. And, and there's so many, I can't even mention them all. And let alone also the generations of staff that we've had, because ALS is hard. I mean, Cassy, you've been with us 8 years and I'm 22. And, there's a lot of loss that comes with this, and, and our staff change over time, but everyone carries their bit forward and we pass it on to the next person, and we keep moving the mission forward. And we've made a difference in supporting families, in research and advocacy. There's so much progress in research today that's exciting because of all the support we've been able to channel and funnel forward with both public policy research funding and ALS funding for research science funding from our own organization, over around 2.8 million over the last number of years. But it's all of us pulling together, so many people and stories I can't even there's too many. I couldn't even begin to start to tell them, but the most humbling ones to me really are when people come together and you see some magical moments of support, often at support groups or, between people living with ALS, the beautiful bonds that people can create. That's probably one of the most amazing things.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Lance.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's, you were talking about some of the people that you think of. It just, you said, people fill our hearts. And I think that's, reflecting on that's why we do what we do. And you've dedicated so much of your life to supporting this organization. As you're kind of creeping up on that January 31st date, and as you think about stepping away, what is your vision for the next chapter of ALS Northwest? And, what do you see as our opportunities and strengths as we head forward?
Yeah, no, first of all, I'm so thrilled, Cassy, that you're going to step into this executive director role. I think it's the right choice for our board and for our staff and our organization. You're loved and respected in our community, and I'm really eager to support you in this efforts moving forward. I'm not leaving our community. I'm just changing my hat. However, I promise not to meddle. I won't do that. but I think there's the needs of families with ALS are endless. Yeah. We could pour millions and millions of dollars into every family and it's not enough. So there's always needs to improve the support resources for families dealing with the disease. I also know that we are a regional organization. There's people who are coming to us from all parts of the Northwest that don't have the same level of support that people in Oregon and Southwest Washington do. And it's heartbreaking not to be able to always help them, So I think there's opportunities to grow the footprint of all we do, and then, of course, advocacy, making a difference on the state level and the federal level, but also really advocating for and supporting ALS research, because ultimately we do want an end to ALS. And all of that together really takes a concentrated effort. I am actually very encouraged by the research community today. It is so much more dynamic than it was 22 years ago. There's so many researchers, so many projects, so much excitement. The understanding of the genetics, the mechanisms of the disease, biomarkers, all these things that were really almost moribund 22 years ago are now very dynamic, with research efforts moving forward to develop therapies. And the hard part is not to lose faith and to keep pushing forward, because science is full of failures, and that's part of what has to happen to find things that are effective and work is to posit scientific ideas, test them, bring them forward as therapies, and test the therapies. And sometimes the therapies don't work, and that's heartbreaking. But I'm so appreciative of the heroes who choose to participate in clinical trials, because at Providence and other centers around the region and the country, because until we test something to know really whether it works in real people, we don't know. And there's going to be failures, but there's so much in the pipeline and so many bright minds looking at this to move it forward. I'm encouraged for the future.
Well, and that's something I learned from you early on too, Lance, was that, what feels like a failure and it is also our path towards the next step and helps move the needle forward, which is, gives us hope that we're into something new. Well, I think one of my last questions for you, Lance, is, knowing that change can be unsettling for people. It's hard. What would you say to reassure the ALS Northwest community about the future of this organization?
Yeah, I would just share with everyone that we're fiscally sound, but that happens because of your support. As an organization, we do not receive insurance funding or any government funding, and so our support really comes from event participants and donors and individual gifts and some foundation support and a few other things. To make sure that all this keeps moving forward, it takes your support to maintain that fiscal health for our community. We have an amazing board and a great staff and great community partners. Our partners, clinicians at the ALS centers across the region and clinics are just truly working from the heart, because ALS is not the easiest healthcare realm to specialize in. So it takes people who have a special dedication to do it. And so I'm very encouraged by that. And then I'm very encouraged by the compassion of our team here at ALS Northwest, across all aspects of our organization, from the administrative staff to the fundraisers to the communications people to our amazing care services team who work every day with their hearts from compassion, so that every person who gets an ALS diagnosis knows that they're not alone, that there's someone who's going to walk with them on this entire journey. And sadly, right now, it still, for most people, means, a terminal diagnosis in some span of time. But I'm hopeful and look forward to this becoming a chronic disease. But even then, people will still need support. So I know that this organization and the people who care about it and this whole community are going to make sure that those supports are out there for people who are living with ALS.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Lance, let me be the first of many, or not the first of many, but one of many, to just sincerely thank you for your dedication, your leadership, and your visioning from the last 20 years. And we're all excited about you moving forward. And like you said, changing that hat and getting to explore and do all that you do. And we know that you'll continue to lean in and be a strong supporter and always engaged in this mission. And I'm just honored to help carry the torch forward and appreciate just sincerely all that you've done.
Thank you so much, Cassy. And I look forward to also continuing to connect with everyone. And I just want to say I love you and I love everybody in our community. And thank you guys so much it's a pretty good run. So thank you.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and please send all of your best wishes to Lance and help continue the fight for finding cures and a treatment for this disease. So thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you.